A new survey has found the influence of fossil fuel industries at global climate talks has risen significantly in recent years. The analysis was carried out by the campaign group Global Witness. Climate conferences have always attracted significant numbers from the coal, oil and gas industries keen to influence the shape of the debate. Last year in Glasgow, an analysis of official attendance lists found 503 delegates connected to fossil fuels. This year in Egypt, that figure has gone up to 636. The data shows there are more fossil fuel lobbyists in Sharm el-Sheikh than delegates from the 10 countries most impacted by climate change. Well, for the latest out of Sharm el-Sheikh, let's cross over and speak to Arise environment correspondent Leila Johnson-Salami. Good to see you, Leila. So, as we said there, a new survey finding that the influence of fossil fuel industries at climate talks, such as this one, has risen significantly. They're obviously keen to influence the shape of the debate. Tell us more about what that survey by Global Witness has found.
Good evening, Charles. Absolutely. A new study by Global Witness has found that there's a growing influence of oil and gas talks at climate talks around the world, of oil and gas interest, rather. At COP27 this year, there are said to be 636 oil and gas lobbyists. Now, last year in Glasgow, there were 503 oil and gas lobbyists, so that's about a 25% increase, which is quite a lot. Now, this can obviously be attributed to the energy crisis in Europe and the fresh demand for fossil fuels, and then of course also Africa looking for investments in gas to support the energy transition plans of different countries on the continent. So there are reasons that can be attributed to this, but it is quite shocking when you hear, like you said, that this year's increase means that there are more oil and gas lobbyists than the combined delegations of the 10 most impacted countries by climate change in the world. So it is quite a worrying statistic, but the reasons behind it are obviously related to the current geopolitics that we are living through.
Well, absolutely. So what do campaigners want to happen? I understand there are calls for these fossil fuel lobbyists and industry representatives to be banned from all future climate summits.
As you can imagine, Charles, yes, climate campaigners do want oil and gas lobbyists banned from talks like COP27 and future climate talks, arguing that it takes away from the credibility of these talks for them to have such access to these talks that are going on. However, at the same time, corporate bodies like the US Council for International Business say that not including corporate bodies will damage, and I quote, damage and slow down implementation and marginalize one of the most central constituencies of the UNFCCC process. So those are the two sides here, from corporate bodies and obviously from activists who are pushing for the banning of oil and gas lobbyists. There were several protests going on today outside the venue, same with yesterday on Finance Day, calling for the defunding of fossil fuel projects around the world.
So, I mean, Leila, a few days into this summit, where do you think things stand now with the war on climate change? Is it possible to be optimistic?
Well, one can be optimistic, Charles, but there's certainly a cap on that, a serious cap on that. You know, today is Science Day at COP27, and earlier on this year, the IPCC Sixth Assessment Report came out, the second part of it, and the report found that even if the world gets to 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming above pre-industrial levels, that's still going to come with devastating impacts. And to minimize the effects of that, what the world has to do now is try and aim to stay below 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So when you have the science, which has been discussed today extensively at COP27, showing this data and giving us the future outlook that looks quite negative, it is a bit difficult then to be optimistic. At COP27, we're also seeing debt-creating climate finance coming out of this conference. For example, South Africa's deal with Germany and France, the 600 million euros in concessional finance. So you have campaigners calling for no debt to becoming more, standing against rather more debt being created for emerging economies and developing countries in the process of this, saying that climate finance is not supposed to be charity, it's about justice. That's what one campaigner said today. So the whole thing here is we cannot create more issues while trying to solve the climate crisis. And for this to be successful, it can't be another COP with more soft agreements and more pacts, which is why this is supposed to be the implementation COP, and ensuring that countries and corporations switch from pledges to action. But it's yet to see as to whether that's going to be done and adhered to as well, because promises do keep on being broken, which is why it's hard to be optimistic, but one has to be all the time, I guess, to some extent.
Yes, I think we would have to be. And I want to thank you very much indeed, Layla, for your coverage of that climate summit. Layla Johnson-Salami is Arise Environment correspondent, and she was talking to me there about the climate conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt.